Hello and welcome, Angelinos. We thank you for tuning in to yet another brilliant episode of the Galaxy Guy podcast, hosted by Chris Maldonado, a show made by loyal Galaxy fans for loyal Galaxy fans who bleed blue, white and gold. So join us as we talk about the ins and outs, as well as the ups and downs of your favourite team, the one and only, the Los Angeles Galaxy.
Hey, are we on?
I think we're on.
Jesus God, I'm sorry. I must have fallen asleep. I feel like, what day is it today? Sunday?
I just had the worst nightmare. I had the worst nightmare, Chris.
I think I've been asleep for about 2 weeks now. I hope I didn't miss anything major. Did I?
Maybe.
The Galaxy got all 9. Galaxy got all 9 points on the road.
We rotated really well. We beat the worst teams in the league. All is good. We're having a great time.
I'm glad to hear that. And Chicharito got double hat tricks, right?
Of course. Yep. Okay. His calves are strong and tight and ready to go.
Great. Awesome. I'm glad I actually slept through that. Because
this sounds like a scene from Inception. I'm not.
Anyway, this is the show. Welcome to the show, everyone. Hola y bienvenidos, Angelinos. You guys know the deal. Welcome back, Galaxy fans, to the Galaxy Guy Show. Como siempre, I'm your host, Chris Maldonado, and we are coming to you today with some energy. Okay, because I mean, looking back to the last 3 games that the Galaxy has played, someone has to bring the energy, right? So that I think that has to be us. We have to be awake. And that's us here tonight on this show. Last week, there was plenty of ranting after that Vancouver loss on our end. And I think there's definitely going to be some more ranting today. I know Matt's been suffering through this as much as I have. And he seems like he's about ready to erupt. So yes, it's going to be a hot show tonight. About as hot as that Dallas Heat. And we're going to be talking about not only this past Saturday's disastrous 4-0 blowout loss to yet another really bad team in the Western Conference, FC Dallas, but we're going to be talking generally about the Galaxy's last 3 road trip games, last 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about that as a whole. We'll be covering the lead up to that game, providing you all the analysis and breakdown, and we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of those games. Definitely have the feeling that my guests tonight will have a lot more of the bad and the ugly to talk about than ever before. And to talk about all of that, help us make sense of it, we have joining us tonight, the usual, the voice of reason, Mr. Matt Granger, also known as Mattstradamus. You already know him. Also joining us tonight is someone that most Galaxy fans will already know, the one, the only, the soccer diva herself, Sophie Nicolaou. Hey, Sophie, it's a pleasure having you on the show tonight. How are you?
I'm good, but I don't know if Mattstradamus knows that in the Highbury Squad universe, I'm known as Sostradamus. So we're going to have like some type of Damus dance-off at some point. Soccer related, of course, but thanks for having me, you guys. I love your show and I'm really happy. Well, I would be happier to be here under different result circumstances, but I'm happy to be here with you too.
Listen, it's under different circumstances. It would have been different conversation, but it's important to have it, especially when it's like I said earlier, from a third person perspective, somebody who's neutral, who covers the league. It's going to be great to have that insight for the 1 or 2 Galaxy fans out there who may not be entirely sure who you are yet. If you could please just tell everyone a bit of what you do, what you've done as a soccer reporter.
Sure. I've been covering the LA Galaxy since the days of Mr. David Beckham for TalkSport in the UK. That was an assignment we actually had at World Football Daily, a live show I was doing in LA for a few years. And then that kind of, continued on with covering MLS and in particular LA Galaxy and David Beckham's journey for TalkSport. And then that continued with the journey of Robbie Keane, even though that was hard for me at the time because he was a Spurs player. And as an Arsenal fan, that wasn't always easy, but we all fell in love with Robbie, so that's okay. And then, of course, Zlatan and Steven Gerrard. And then I covered the European players like Pirlo and Frank when they came here, David Villa. Kaká. We forget about him.
Steven Gerrard.
Steven Gerrard and Steven Gerrard. The funniest thing, real quick, was it was Sunday, and it wasn't Sunday. It was a game after, and we were in the dressing room, and he heard my accent, and he kind of started talking to me. And that's not really allowed, like, to talk to the players in the dressing room unless they're in interview mode. And I thought, well, I can't be rude and ignore him. And he started asking me about whether or not, as a Brit living in LA, I miss Sunday roast dinners. And that was my biggest interaction with Steven Gerrard. So that's kind of like what I've been doing. I also have a podcast where I talk about Arsenal and the Premier League and European football, and I cover the US women's national team as well.
Sure. So it's very safe to say that we're in good hands tonight.
I don't know about that.
You're an expert.
Maybe Matt. In that Barcelona shirt, I think you're in good hands. I'm not sure about me.
We're in good hands. Barcelona's not in good hands, but we're in
good that's true.
We're in good hands tonight. We're going to get some really good insight from Sophie. I know that. So like I said, very, very good to have your insight on here tonight.
Thank you.
Pleasure having you. Matt, how are you holding up, brother? I see some sadness and disappointment in your eyes. What's going on, man?
You know what? There is sadness and disappointment in my eyes. Luckily for me, it's hereditary. The Grangers have always had sadness and disappointment in their eyes. It's been a rough run for us. But no, I'm good. You know what? I mean, life's good. What's to complain about? The weather's great. The Galaxy managed to somehow still be in third despite everyone else losing behind them.
Incredible.
Sophie's on the show today. I'm one of her biggest fans. Aww. It's a good day. Your shirt looks great. The facial hair looks phenomenal.
His lighting is amazing, isn't it? He and Josh Gessman, these buggers, their lighting is amazing. I'm going to have them come round and fix my lighting, Matt, because I literally, just so you guys know, I broke this bugger before we came on air. So it's going to get darker and darker as the show goes on. So don't think I'm some type of vampire over here. I've
seen Gessman's lights. Those are some serious lights. Those are like movie lights. Mine was like $10 on Amazon. So I do what I can. But yeah, no, listen, I'm trying out the movie villain look.
It's good. I like the goatee. Yeah. You've got that, the innocent, like before he turns into the superhero look, right. You've got that, he's a reporter at the local newspaper, this completely, guy who just hangs around, and then who knows, he turns out to be a superhero. You've got that look going on for sure.
Well, it's definitely a lot better
and Matt just looks like, I'm not being funny, it's Iniesta. I mean, he's ready to rock. I think Arsenal could use you midfield. Yeah, totally. He's rocking the Barcelona shirt.
I'll take it any day.
Oh man, it's been a roller coaster of a week. There's been many ups. There's been a lot of downs. I have a total of about 8 hours of sleep in me in the past 3 days combined. And of course, the Galaxy has done very little to help the mood this week. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. Got some major things in the works, the Galaxy related, the podcast related, other things. So stay tuned. But let's get this going, right? As we kick this off here, we have to talk about the buildup to this game, right? Prior to Saturday's game, the Galaxy was coming off two very disappointing road games, the one versus Vancouver and the one versus Real Salt Lake. They, of course, lost 2-1 in that match versus Vancouver, who was at that point sitting dead last in the Western Conference. And then they went and tied 2-2 midweek versus RSL, a team that has honestly this season been kind of mediocre. They've been so-so. They've had their hot moments. They've had their cold moments. So short rest period between those games for the players. They had to play at altitude, extreme heat, basically this entire road trip. But Sophie, I'll ask you first. Mm-hmm. How much of this failure, because I don't think we can classify this road trip as anything other than a failure. How much can we blame this on tired legs and the elements, or was this perhaps a bit of a mental slump for the Galaxy?
It's a very good question, because I never want to be hard on players, because they have come out of a very short season, whether you're playing in Europe or you're playing in MLS. We've asked players to do things that, some of us aren't willing to do, i.e. most of us get to work from home during the pandemic. we've been able to create some type of bubble or safe haven, and our athletes, we're asking to do the continual extraordinary things in unprecedented times, right? So I've really tried to take a beat and take a step back in how I'm reviewing this LA Galaxy road trip. However, with all that said, it is July, okay? It's not the tail end business of the season yet. It's a critical part of the season, especially when you see the inconsistencies across the league, right?
Sure.
No single one. We could argue maybe a couple of teams look like they're contenders at this point. But I do think that losing to two rock bottom teams on the road is completely unacceptable for a team that has also invested a tremendous amount of money recently. Now, granted, they're trying to still gel these players together. They're not a complete team yet. They haven't played enough. You're asking a lot of players who've come from completely different places around the world to not only settle into a new way of playing football, a new way of traveling and playing football, but also they're in a brand new country, right?
Right.
And it's not second nature to them. It's easier for Bond to come over. He speaks English. He can settle in easier. But for some of these other players, it's not as simple. I asked a question to the coach yesterday, guys, in the press conference. And for the first time ever, it's the first answer I've never quite liked from Greg Vanney. And here's what I asked him. I said, you've been on the road for a while. What are you doing? What's your method to integrate the team? And I joked about, like, Ted Lasso came out yesterday. Are you watching the premiere? Like, how are they connecting? How are they sticking together? What are they doing to kind of still be in the players' faces, be a reminder as coaches, and, have this integration when on the road, minds can go, focus can go, concentration can go.
Absolutely.
And I felt like his answer was a bit, not aloof, but he other than we played Jeopardy or have played Jeopardy on the road a few times, there was no kind of concrete, other than we eat dinner together, what they're doing as a group, because it's been a long time, you guys, that they've been away from home. And that gave me a little bit of an indication when I saw the result yesterday is they didn't feel connected on the pitch. They didn't feel like a team. They felt like individuals playing together. And I thought it was really telling from his answer to my question. I'm not saying that's the reason, but it just felt like they were kind of over it in a very premature way. You still had that game to play.
Sure.
You know what I mean,
Yeah.
Chris?
And I got that from a couple. I mean, I believe it was after the Vancouver game. I also asked Vanny during the press conference because it did seem like the players were checked out, and his answer was that his players were playing at about 60%, maximum output, just because he thought, I guess, they were saving themselves for the midweek game against RSL. So the mentality for the players was something along the lines of, it's Vancouver, they're trash, we're gonna win this game easily. So they went out there and kind of coasted, and it kicked them in the pants. So I kind of got that sense too. It's a mentality thing, I think, a combination of both, to be honest. Listen, I'm 31. I still play soccer on a weekly basis. I try to. Mm-hmm. My body doesn't recover the same anymore, and we have some older legs out there. So these guys are obviously pro athletes, different level than me, but
it shows you without, and I've been critical of Jonah, but without Leggett and Jonah, you can't, you're not going to win games with that midfield. You may win one or two, but it's not going to be the answer going forward. And that shows you a little bit of how, if there's injuries, the squad can still be really thin in certain places because the quality. And also, did he try, I don't know, Matt, guys, what do you think? It seemed like he tried to put square pegs in round holes. Why didn't he play with an out and out striker?
Zubak. Yeah, he played Victor Vasquez, which was weird.
And Victor Vasquez doesn't have the legs anymore.
Not at all, especially after such a short period of time, just game 2-3 days prior, it made no sense. Matt, actually, that's the reason we call him Matt Stradamus. The last time we spoke, you said that the best the LA Galaxy could hope for from this road trip was 1 to 2 points maximum. And I know a lot of Galaxy fans hated you for saying that, and it turns out you were spot on. What's your take on this, man? Like 1 point,
I
3
think,
games.
well, to tend to stay on the question, I think it's a combination of the two. I think it's a tough stretch, no doubt about it. It's hot, it's humid. There was elevation involved. I think if you're looking for an out, if you're a fan looking for an out, then that kind of makes a lot of sense. But I also think it was partly mentality as well. I think you guys bring up a good point about the team not gelling, that maybe not everyone is kind of on the same page of what their goals are with the team. I also think that Vanny, for the first time, has looked flustered and angry going into the press conferences. Like maybe he's like at a little bit of a loss of how to motivate his team and what what to do like tactically. I mean, putting Victor Vasquez up there as a false nine or a striker, or at very minimum, like the primary guy to press, like it worked really well for 10 minutes. But again, like he doesn't have the legs. That was never going to work. And then he also made like the tactical mistake of starting the same people back-to-back games, and then a third game as well, right? If you guys both follow the Galaxy, obviously, but in like 2019, we had a similar stretch where we played the Red Bulls, we played the Crew both away, and then we came back and played New York. And that was 3 games between May 4th and May 11th. And Guillermo Berlusconi fell into the same trap in that he thought New York would be an easy game. It wasn't. We ended up losing in a very entertaining game, to be fair. He should have rested against Columbus so we could have played the game at home at full strength, and he didn't. And I think Vanny kind of made that rotational mistake, fell into that trap, trying to prove a point, and then it cost us. I think as much as there is blame to be placed on the players and their mentality and honestly not showing up and taking it seriously enough from the get-go, there's also some blame for Vanny for mismanaging the rotation, to not sticking to his game plan, and for not getting his players up. Because I mean, you're the CEO of this team, you're the CEO of this company. The mentality is going to revolve through you. And I think I had mentioned earlier that, you know, sometimes the leader is on the field and sometimes the leader is the coach, like it is for Mourinho, for example. He's like this, like, you know, personality vacuum. And Vanny's kind of that guy right now. So if the mentality is not right, it's not right because he's not portraying it in an effective way.
You know, he takes on the responsibility. You're right about the Mourinho thing, in the sense that early in his career, not now because he throws players under the bus, whereas before, especially in his tenure at Chelsea, there are coaches that do this. Bruce was very good at doing this too. He soaked up all the pressure for the players always. And sometimes players take that for granted. And I think that they know there's a grace period because there's this new team trying to gel together. But like Sasha's a leader, you know, he's an honest guy. And he always steps up, especially in press conferences when things are negative, guys. And I just didn't feel like, other than him, I mean, Vasquez, I think, is a leader too. There just seemed to be is apathy a too strong a word to use? There was this disengagement, you know.
No, I think you're on point.
Yeah.
No, I think apathy is perfect.
I would go with that as well. Yeah.
You know, and I just feel like, because when the coach is so protective, the players sometimes take that for granted a little bit. And I just think that they did not play for him, nor the fans, nobody yesterday. And I think they were already aligned with the excuses of, it's hot, we've been on the road for 3 weeks. They'll, you know, there's no excuses, not at this level, not for this team.
I agree with that. Listen, it's at the end of the day, you can't do what Greg Vanny did. Okay. We talked about this, Matt, and we'll go into it deeper when we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I'll just say it real quick. Greg Vanny should have played the young kids midweek against RSL to start, at least. Give them 45 minutes, bring in the older guys at the end. Or he could have done that this match. Bring in the younger guys in the first half. Things don't seem to be working well. Bring in Sasha, bring in Victor in that second half, right? Yeah. Victor and Sasha played very well for about 10, 15, 20 minutes in that first half, and then they gassed out, right? And then the Galaxy just fell apart. It would have been better to bring them on in the second half when Dallas is also gassed. Victor and Sasha have to do far less work, right? They have to chase the ball. a lot less. And then it could have been a completely different game. You bring in the young guys, they have the energy, you get them started. But I mean, it is what it is, right? 1 point in 3 games. That's what we're looking at. But let's dive into the part of the show where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We naturally have to start with the good. Now, despite the 2 losses, the 1 draw totaling 1 point in 3 games, there was a handful of good moments for the Galaxy. Sophie, we'll start with you. What would you say were some of the good moments from this road trip, some positives to take away from this?
Okay.
Come on.
Other than the Dallas game, I would say that they didn't play that badly. I think the Dallas game, there's no, everybody gets a 0. There's no excuses for that. But the other games, I felt like there were moments where you could see how this team could maybe become, late August, September time. So for me, that was the positive, in that as bad as the results were, there were a couple of performances where you still saw the potential.
Sure.
I mean, that's as positive as I can be on that. But I think it's fair. I think, because I did think that they had moments where, again, they're not clinical enough. And I said to Josh on his show, I'm like, if Chicharito is not scoring the goals, where are they coming from? How is this team going to win games without him? Especially the way he started this season. And every team needs goals from the flanks or the midfield,
right,
as much as they can. And I think that's been the Achilles heel.
It speaks volumes to the fact that our second highest goal scorer is a guy that has played 4 games for the team now, 2 games as a center back, and he's our second highest goal scorer now, that just coming from a foreign league, and it blows my mind. That's how bad we are at scoring goals right now. That our center defensive midfielder is our second highest goal scorer 4 games in. It's ridiculous. But Matt, we'll ask you same question. What are some positive takeaways from these 3 games on the road?
So my good is going to be Ryanair. That's a good joke for my European fans. It's an airplane that'll get you anywhere you want to be.
Good
all over Europe. We're cheap. It's the spirit of Europe. No, he's you know what? He's just got excellent instincts in the air. His spacing is phenomenal. He really just has a nose for where exactly the ball is going to be and where the gaps are. But I think even more than that, he just has the mentality where he wants to score. He desperately wants to impact the game. I think he had said in an interview where he heard people booing him, and that motivated him more to score. And then when he did score, he threw up the hand to the air. That's the type of player you want on your team. Someone who wants to take it to the opposing team, wants to take it to the opposing fans, and wants to bring glory to the club. I just think he's going to be a tremendous CDM for our team. I think he's a great engine. The fact that he's so young is wonderful. And just even statistically, he's killing it. He's got 86% overall passing. He's 88% on medium range, 93% plus on short range passing, 15 tackles, 11 won, 6 interceptions, 60% aerial duels won. I mean, the guy is a really, really, really good player. I don't know what we paid for him, but we definitely underpaid for him. I cannot wait to see more.
And how long has he been there, Matt? How long has he been?
4 games?
With? Right.
4 games with that.
So when people talk about settling in, the Cabrals of the world, the Grand Sears, and that's sometimes I do it the same with my team. Okay, Dennis Bergkamp, Robert Pires, they took a while to settle in. They became who they are. But some players just hit it right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but my goodness, I mean, he's playing fearless, isn't he?
We saw it from Christian Pavone. He just hit the ground running. He needed no transition period. He just started producing right from the start. He was the same age as Kevin Cabral, right? 22, 23, just about. And we'll talk about that definitely in the bad and ugly. But I do agree with you, Matt. Ryan Revolution, it doesn't matter. People pronounce it differently. He was definitely a standout during those past 3 games. I wouldn't be surprised if you like take the heat map from all 3 games and it's just brighter than everyone else because the guy was all over the pitch, helping out on the defense, controlling the midfield, just moving up and down, joining the attack, going forward in the final third, scored some goals. Listen, keep in mind that this guy, comes from a totally different climate. The travel scene is different. I'm sure he's never had to travel as much as he has in these last couple of weeks since he's been here, right? I don't know if they have 99-degree humid weather in whatever part of France he's coming from, but it's different. And the guy has just hit the ground running, like Sophie said. Talk about, just needing no time to adjust, no acclimation, right? The guy's just here and he's ready to play. He's hit the ground running. He's been a standout. I have to say, even the heat didn't seem to affect him as much as it did other Galaxy players out there. I mean, some guys just looked like they were dead 10 minutes in, but Ryan was still hustling towards the end, which was really surprising and very refreshing to say the least. As far as for me, some other good things that I can talk about, I think Villafana was like pretty decent these last 3 games. Very tired, 31 years old. I get it, right? But Julian Araujo's been good. Our 2 fullbacks have been decent. Our defense hasn't been that great, but those 2 guys, they've made decent runs. They made decent recoveries. Unfortunately, the results didn't go their way. Defense got scored on, was it 8 goals in 3 games? Something like that. 9 goals. 8 goals in 3 games.
Mm-hmm. I think Julian Araujo's getting away with it.
I think so,
because we love him and adore him. He's become that kind of player, that's hard to criticize maybe, but I expect more from him, and I know that he can't do it on his own all the time, but I just don't think he's playing to his maximum ability. No way.
Absolutely. I mean,
because he's the kind of player that can galvanize the team when he's on, and that's not even happening.
No, not at all. I mean, he didn't play his best games these last 3 games. Collectively, the team played horrible. And I do agree. He has a lot of growing up to do, not only physically, because he's 18, 19. He still has about 2 or 3 years to grow into a man. But yeah, mentally, there are those moments where he just kind of falls asleep, right? And we saw that in that Dallas game. I think one of those goals, Julian could have stepped in, but he was just, a minute or 2 late. So,
yeah.
But that's about it. Unless you guys have anything else to add on the good, I think we pretty much covered most of what was good, which is really sad. But we can move on now to the bad, which is the real meat of the sandwich, right? We have to talk about the bad moments in this game and the road trip in general. Matt, I know your liver has been having a rough week. I know you have quite a lot of gripes with the Galaxy lately. So I'll ask you first. What were your bad takeaways from this road trip?
There's a lot, but I'll just center on one because for time purposes.
Sure.
Williams looked really bad. Like I thought he looked really god awful bad. He looked rusty, slow. He was super indecisive, and then his distribution out of the back, especially with Depew, was just god awful poor. Man, in RSL and in Vancouver, it just looked like they didn't know who was supposed to take charge back there. And then when they did pass out, it was really bad. He had tons of errors. In Vancouver, he cleared the ball right to the Vancouver player, which ended up being a goal. Against Dallas, he misses that header. That results in a goal. Even the Steres deflection. If we're being honest, Pepe has slipped Williams. Even if that ball goes through and Steres doesn't pick up his leg, it's probably a 60-40 chance or a 50-50 chance who gets the ball between Bond and Pepe. It was a bad spot that Williams had kind of put the Galaxy in, regardless of that deflection. Deflection kind of just masked it altogether. And then even the game against RSL, the goal they scored goes right through his legs. Just poor help on Villafana, who already had kind of massacred that play. I think there's if you're looking for an excuse for Williams, rust certainly can be it. But I also think, and Turbo Skin had brought this up in the Discord, it's like this guy came from the English Championship League, and they're in like most parts of very competitive Europe. Like you have to play every game like it's your life, because the reality of the situation is that someone's there to take your job like that day. So if you're not ready to go that day, like you may very well be out of a job within a week or a month, or you might get moved on or drop the league. So I think like most Galaxy fans, I was super disappointed in how he came out of suspension looking so poor. I mean, it looked like, I mean, he was just out of shape,
rusty and out of shape.
Rusty.
Yeah.
I mean, he was so bad, it almost makes you question like what he was even doing there. And his play was so poor. I'm not saying this is going to happen. Probably going to get flamed for this, but it's almost like he's doing his best job to try to play Steris into a starting role next to Sega. That's how bad it was. Like it's absurd. I don't know. I mean,
think about how good he looked before that sending off too.
So that's what I was. It's funny you bring that up, Sophie. I was actually talking to my wife, and I asked her. I said, "Do you think that Williams is looking this bad because of the suspension, and now it's ruined his decisiveness, which is key for a center back?" And she brought up the point, like, well, how can you even determine it? His sample size was so small before the suspension. We don't even know what player he really is. This might just be the return to the mean. So I think, I mean, we'll have to see how it goes. But he was horrendous.
I think your wife brings up a really good point. And also you mentioned rust, and I say rust and trust, right? Yeah. Because now he's questioning his challenges. He doesn't want to let anyone down. There's, when a player comes back from injury and they're reluctant to get stuck into tackles, a player comes back from an incident like that was probably one of the most horrific tackles and challenges we've seen in MLS, period. It was awful. There's no two ways about it. Coming back from that and really being able to exert your personality, your character, and how you play, I think he might have second questioned himself on some of those. So it might be a few games before we see the real him. But bigger question on that. Why did he come back like that? Why isn't he prepared? What were the coaching staff doing? This is the first time ever I've questioned Vanny and his staff.
Yeah.
After the Dallas game.
Listen, it was a visible thing. I saw it. He's definitely about 10 pounds heavier than he was before the suspension. Yeah. And, I don't want to burn anyone on social media, but, follow his wife on social media. I see that they go out quite a lot. It's their first time in LA, I think. They're living here. They love the lifestyle. A lot of restaurants. I don't know. Maybe he's been making one too many trips to In-N-Out while he's been bored at home on suspension,
very human.
Which is very human. It's very human. Yeah, absolutely. But Sophie hits it right there. Nail on the head. What's the coaching staff doing about it? I'm sure they have weigh-ins once a week, right? Hey, listen, you're putting on a little bit too much. Let's get you in with the nutritionist. Let's talk about this. How are you staying active these 5 weeks that you're suspended, right? They have to be on top of that. These are top of the line athletes. They have to be on top of it. So big question on that, Sophie, and I would love answers to that as well. But yeah, I agree. Williams, Sophie, what were some bad takeaways from this road trip for the Galaxy aside from Williams?
I just think overall, again, are we in the same situation defense wise, like turnkey? Just seems. Let me ask you guys this, because you know the roster a lot better than I do. Was that the best defensive lineup yesterday for LA Galaxy? The four?
You take away Steris and you put in Sega, and Williams is in shape. That's the best defensive lineup the Galaxy has, in my opinion. Villafania, Sega, Williams, and Araujo.
Matt, you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually thought that would, before Sega got here and showed that he could dribble the ball, I actually thought this would be the starting lineup.
It just seems too like the cohesion between them and Bond was off. At the beginning of the season, it felt like Bond was commanding in the box. He had confidence. I think he's lost confidence in them. I don't think it's a case of them losing confidence in Bond, because he's always on deck to do his best. So for me, it just felt like, hold on a second, what's happening at the back? Leaking 4 goals against an FC Dallas team that, yes, they have lots of up and coming talent, right? But their position in the league, where they're at, there's no way that should be happening. So that was I think the juxtaposition to that is also the inability to create, right? So it's not a double entendre, but it's a double whammy there on both sides of the pitch. But sure. The defense for me, I was worried in the sense that, are we seeing a trend building that we thought was improved at the beginning of the season?
Listen, when you said that right now, I hadn't thought about it that way, but I do think Bond has lost confidence in that defense. It's noticeable. I mean, there was moments there where it was like a little bit of a stutter. Like, am I getting the ball? Are you guys getting the ball? Am I going for it? And then, he had to end up going for the ball. A lot of miscommunication there.
Hesitancy.
That's the word. Yes. And it worries me a lot. We need to start seeing a Galaxy backline that is consistent week after week, because it's been so inconsistent these last couple of weeks. We've had so many center back pairings, and it's just, you can't build on that. So I think that might be the answer. We'll pray and see that, we'll see the results in about a month, right? So any other bad takes on your end, guys, or pretty much covered some of the most horrendous things?
No, Sophie's right. Bad play is contagious.
Yeah.
Listen,
don't hold back, right? Like this we have to get in deep into the Galaxy.
Sometimes here. I have to be held back because I say too much. Maybe, I don't know.
It's okay. I'm the punching bag in this show.
Well, I've got my Chicharito humble pie baking right now, Matt. So, maybe, I don't know if you were part of that crew, but it's definitely baking. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. There's a long way to go yet, but it's definitely in the oven.
So let's get into the part of the show now where we talk about the ugly stuff. Okay. I'll start off, and one of our co-hosts, Casey, sent me his notes, and on his notes was pretty much the same thing that I was thinking, and I agree with Casey on this. Without a doubt, the ugliest take from this road trip for the LA Galaxy, these last 3 games, guys, we managed 1 point, one single point out of 9 possible points against 2 very horrendous teams in the Western Conference. It was very clear that this Galaxy team simply expected 3 points to come easily from that Vancouver game. They played at 60% effort. Greg Vanney said as much during the press conference. And they thought they were gonna, they expected to just show up and walk all over that Whitecaps team. That mentality right there ended up in a very embarrassing loss, and I do believe that mentality carried into the RSL and the Dallas game, which definitely wasn't helped by the fact that these guys were exhausted and tired, right? So that's my ugly take. I know we can get into some other things. I'll leave that up to you guys because I know there's some ugly takes on your end. I'm just hopeful that Greg can snap them out of this mental rut, kick them in the pants, light some fire underneath these guys, because August will definitely be very taxing on them. A ton of games in a short period of time. It's going to be tough. They need to wake up. Sophie.
That was my leather couch, by the way, not me. I just want to let you guys know I had to move. So just making that clear.
Well, don't worry.
It'll come out in editing.
It'll come out in editing.
The ugly, I mean, the bang on, like the 1 point. It's a crime, because you know what? As much as it hurts now, is this going to be the road trip that comes back to bite LA Galaxy in the arse down the road, right? Now, the team's lucked out because of some of the results around them. It's unbelievable. We were talking before we came on air about inconsistencies this season, and it seems it's one of those old school football sayings. It's up for grabs now. It feels that, yes, at some point though, there's going to be teams that are going to start banking those points, right? So sure. I think luck has played a role among this, but later on, is that gonna be something that hurts the team? And the true ugly factor is who is gonna score, who is going to bang in the goals when Chicharito isn't playing? Where are they coming from? And how are they going to create chances? And the midfield, without those starters, those key players who are missing right now because of international duty, and if there's injuries, this team is going to struggle. It's hard enough with seeing how they're performing at the back over the last 2 or 3 games, but not being able to take these chances when they come, at some point these players have to step up. I think that's just been the ugliest part.
Sure. And it's MLS. I mean, we know how the playoff system works, and every decision day, it seems that there are teams that are just trying to fight for that last spot, and there's always a point or two difference, right? These are the points that matter.
Yeah.
These are the points that matter because those were 2 easy, let's say relatively easy wins for the Galaxy. They should have been able to take 3 points from Vancouver. They should have been able to take 3 points yesterday at Dallas. But there we go. 6 points out of the equation, right? So
because now you've got Portland coming up.
Portland,
Minnesota, LAFC, Minnesota's in 2-3 weeks, and Vancouver again in a couple weeks. I mean, it starts to get prickly.
SKC, I believe they're doing great.
Yes.
It's going to be very tough, very, very tough. Those were the points that we needed. 1 point. So extremely ugly. I agree with that. I see that Matt is really, really crunching some stuff in his brain right now because I know exactly what he wants to talk about, and I think it might be a specific player that he wants to talk about. Hit us with it, Matt. Who are we talking about here?
I feel okay. I'm gonna circle to him because I feel like I focus on him too much, so I'll mention some other stuff. But Sophie's right. In 18-19 decision day, right? Alessandrini gives away that penalty. We don't make playoffs. I was literally looking at my phone booking a flight, by the way, for the playoffs when Alessandrini gave away that penalty, and then we missed out on playoffs. Same thing in 19. Like 19 just happened to fall our way, then we didn't make playoffs. But I guess my ugly tape is like just unacceptable results, right? Like 1 point out of a possible 9. 3 shots on target. 3 shots total, none on target by Cabral over the span of 3 games. Oh my God, man. Goodness gracious. I mean, you could pay me a Modelo and nachos and cookies, and I will get you 4 shots. So if Chris Klein is out there, I will get you 4 shots for some cookies. The youngest player to ever score a hat trick is now like a record that we're a part of.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is
18 years old.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the truth of the matter is he could have scored 4, like, to be perfectly honest.
Absolutely.
He almost got the 4th one. 8 goals against in 3 games. Like, man, that is really, really bad. Like, I don't know, brutal. Like I don't know how if you're the coaching staff or a player, like, you have to be embarrassed by that stuff. And like we talked about earlier, like there's excuses that are going to be built in to why we did so poorly. But at the end of the day, like, none of these excuses are unique to the Galaxy, right? Like, every time the Galaxy lose, like, we have a very fickle fan base, and that because we coddle our players, like, we love our team so much, right? We love our team so much that we hold on to like Emma Boateng, like, just a little bit too long, right? Like, that's I love Emma Boateng. I love that guy. He's super nice. He took a couple pictures with me, but like, it wasn't gonna get us a championship. That's the type of fan base we are. So we just come up with excuses like, oh, it's the MLS refs. They don't like us. It's too hot. It's too cold. We have injuries. We have international calls. There are tournaments. Like, every team in the league is literally dealing with all those issues at the exact same time we're dealing with them. None of these Galaxy issues are unique. So like, at the end of the day, like, if you want to be a championship team, like, you have to make the decision to be directly accountable, right? Because if you're not accountable, you can't grow. If you say like, oh, if you're the type of fan who says like LA Galaxy are a championship team, but then you're also ready to fall back on that pillow of excuses, like, those two things are working directly contradictory to each other. So like, just these unacceptable results are they're not going to get us anywhere. And like,
sure,
Sophie, you're around the money. Like, who's going to score goals, right? We have so much money locked into our offense already, right? We have 2 DPs in our offense. We have Chicha, we have
Huge
Cabral,
risks.
we have a TAM player,
$1 million.
Granzer. We have a TAM player in Leggett. It's not like we haven't tried. People just aren't producing. And I think I'm gonna go real light on Cabral today because I've already been getting flamed online for just going too hard and too direct on him. But like, there's like this like train of thought that like Cabral needs to be like baby, like a wilting flower almost. But it's like what would this guy have done if he went to like League One, right? Like, this is MLS. This is I mean, I love the league and I love the team, but this is as soft as it's going to get. So if you can't handle this pressure, like, what were you gonna do when you moved up in Europe if you didn't come to the MLS, right?
Right.
I think when we really get down to it, like if my life depended on it or my savings account depended on it, and we had to come up with the best 11, I would just put Seb on the wing, keep Vasquez in the middle, and I would bench Cabral. I just don't see.
I think he needs.
I just don't see what he adds.
I think he needs that kick in the pants.
He does.
To be benched in order to, like, because he just seems too calm, too relaxed out there.
Well, I think when you come in like that, right, as a DP especially, you just think you're not invincible, but untouchable, maybe, And I think Greg's instinct might be, let's keep squeezing him in. It'll work. And sometimes, you just need to, I think Matt's spot on, bench a player in order to revive him or wake him up somewhat.
Sure.
I mean, he's missed some. I mean, he's been poor.
Super poor.
Yeah. Some of his touches. I mean, his first touch is, I think, really good. It's his second touch that lets him down the most, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll say this real quick before we wrap up, because I feel like we pretty much covered everything. We're a little pressed for time. I have played in many soccer teams in my life, obviously not at a professional level. I have played with a lot of guys that are fast, agile, super great dribblers, but can't finish their shots. I hope to God that is not Kevin Cabral, because he looks like he's very talented, but so far what we've seen is that he can't finish his shots. Hoping he's not one of those players, but we're going to have to wait and see. It's been a while. He's been here. He's acclimated. He's got friends that speak French around him. Let's hope that's not the case, but we'll wait and see.
Do you know what we call that, Chris, in England? Can't finish your dinner.
Can't finish your dinner. He can't finish his dinner.
Can't finish his dinner.
So let's hope it's not.
And not
the
leave
same.
Anything on the plate. Come on, finish your dinner, mate.
He's French, so I don't know, what do they eat over there. Exactly.
Les moules et les frites.
But listen, I think we pretty much got through all of it. We covered everything: the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll leave it at that. We'll spare the Galaxy fans the rest of the pain, having to really relive these last 3 games. So I'll say it. Matt, thanks for joining us again on the show, as always. And Sophie, it was a pleasure having you on. Amazing having you on, really.
I got a light working.
Yeah. We'll
just
have
in
to
time.
have you just in time. Well, fantastic. You made the time. We'll have to have you on again.
Anytime you guys want me on, you just ask and I'll be here. No problem.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry I have to run this evening. I've got a family thing going on, but yeah, I think you guys are doing a great job, and your podcast is really engaging. So anytime you just give me a holler and I'll be on.
Perfect. Sounds good. So that's the show for today, folks, Galaxy fans out there. We thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next week. Hopefully we'll have some better stuff to talk about. The Galaxy will hopefully have 3 points. But for me, your host, Chris Maldonado from the Galaxy Guy podcast, from my awesome guests, we want to wish you a great week and goodbye.